here we have kind of the basic back of the envelope model. This is what I use kind of as the first cut for any specific deal I'm looking at. Just kind of put it in quickly. And if the numbers work, I'll move it to kind of a more detailed model later on. But for the purposes of what we're looking at here, this kind of works to start out. You can see we have all the assumptions and everything on the left side here. It's a 16 unit deal coming in at 144 a key, stabilizing at 167 a key. That'll be important. I'll kind of talk about that in a second. But we're assuming that we're buying it for the purchase price that they listed it for, 2.3 million. We'll obviously move that around later on if the numbers don't work, but I like kind of starting there just to see if it's a reasonable kind of ask or not. For the renovations, we're going to assume that nothing's been renovated at the property. Right, it's 16 units. We're going to assume it's 20,000 per unit. That gets us to 320K in renovation dollars. That's probably a bit conservative. I would say is typically you'd expect to get this done for kind of around 10 to 15K, but we're going to be conservative here to start out, and we'll kind of edit the numbers a bit and massage them, if you will, later on. Deal cost, we'll say is 50,000, roughly 2%. That should be fine there. So kind of your total sources and uses gets you to 2.7 mil. The equity and debt, we'll kind of ignore that for now, right? That really depends on what the details look like. I'll explain why in a second, but for now, we'll just ignore that because you can kind of move those around later on. Same thing with the debt, we'll ignore that as well. And then you just kind of have your disposition stats here, and we'll go to that at the end. So really what we have is the in-place income. This is exactly what they had in their rent roll. The one thing that did change in our rent roll is they had a super who didn't pay rent at 1,400. We're just going to assume they do pay rent just to make the numbers easy for now, and we'll just include a management fee instead. So should be able to kind of make that easy. We're just backing it out. But that's the only reason for the different numbers there. Then you have the other income, which is just that coin washer dryer. And then you do the vacancy. They didn't have any vacancy numbers in theirs. We're going to run at 5%. It's a really tight rental market. So 5% should be good. Property taxes, those kind of are what they are. That was based on their numbers, and we looked it up online as well. You can see that on the county website. Insurance based on their numbers, and you can kind of see it's pretty reasonable too. Insurance, they have basically at roughly 750 a unit, I think. Yeah, 766 a unit. So that's very reasonable there. Management, like I said, we kind of backed into that through that rent roll number of 1,400. We'll change that as we get into our own management, possibly when we buy.